Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 39 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. Let's get to our content for the week. It's back, ladies and gentlemen. The second annual NBA in-season tournament is finally here. The LA Lakers defeated the Indiana Pacers last year to clinch the first ever NBA Cup. Remember, the in-season tournament does not have any advantages like an automatic playoff spot or extra draft picks, but don't be surprised if something happens in the future. You never know what Adam Silver has up his sleeve. It's mainly for cash and prizes, as well as having games that are more intense. So to give you a brief background or a review, I went on the NBA's website and I looked up the in-season tournament in its entirety, and I'll basically summarize it for you. The Emirates NBA Cup 2024 will tip off on Tuesday, November 12th in team markets and culminate with the semifinals and championship, which are Saturday, December 14th and Tuesday, December 17th, respectively. And they'll take place at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The NBA Cup consists of 2 stages, group play and knockout rounds. Group play. All 30 teams have been randomly drawn into groups of 5 within their conference based on win-loss records from the 23-24 regular season. Beginning on November 12th and continuing through December 3rd, each team will play 4 designated group play games on Cup nights, 1 game against each opponent in its group, with 2 games at home and 2 on the road. For the knockout rounds, 8 teams will advance to the knockout rounds. The team with the best standing in group play games in each of the 6 groups and 2 wild cards. The team from each conference with the best record in group play games that finish second in its group. The knockout rounds will consist of single elimination games in the quarterfinals played in NBA team markets on Tuesday, December 10th and Wednesday the 11th, and then the semifinals and championship. The knockout teams will compete for a prize pool and the NBA Cup championship trophy. So remember, all these games count toward the regular season. Every team will still play 82 games in the 2024-25 season, including games that are part of group play and knockout rounds. So to give you a breakdown of where each team stands, there are 3 pods, if you want to call them, for each conference. So in the Western Conference, Group A, the Minnesota Timberwolves, LA Clippers, Sacramento Kings, Houston Rockets, and Portland Trail Blazers. Group B, Oklahoma City Thunder, Phoenix Suns, LA Lakers, San Antonio Spurs, and the Utah Jazz. And then rounding out Group C in the West, the Denver Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans, Memphis Grizzlies, and the Golden State Warriors. Going over to the Eastern Conference, Group A, the New York Knicks, Orlando Magic, Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, and Charlotte Hornets. Group B, Milwaukee Bucks, Indiana Pacers, Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors, and the Detroit Pistons. Rounding out the Eastern Conference, Group C, the Boston Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, Chicago Bulls, Atlanta Hawks, and the Washington Wizards. So these Cup nights will take place every Tuesday and Friday from November 12th through December 3rd. The only NBA games played on Cup nights will be group play games. Group play games will count as regular season games for all purposes. So that's pretty much the gist of the NBA in-season tournament. You might remember from a couple years ago when the NBA introduced the play-in tournament, which has to do with certain lower-level seeds getting into the play-in tournament and then the playoffs. The in-season tournament has no standing on draft picks, like I said, but it's still an interesting idea, and it gets viewerships to go up. The Philadelphia 76ers were dealt another major blow this week. We discussed last week about Joel Embiid slugging a Philadelphia Inquirer reporter in the locker room. He received a 3-game suspension for that. Off-season acquisition Paul George made his debut on Monday against Phoenix, but the Sixers keep taking losses. Now star point guard Tyrese Maxey is out for a few weeks with a hamstring issue. For those of you, well, all of you, looking for a bright spot with the Sixers, Embiid is expected to make his season debut tomorrow, November 12th, against the Knicks. Embiid and George should be a lot better than whatever has been going on lately. However, the loss of Maxey will be a tough pill to swallow, especially if the Sixers struggle to return to 500. Finally, LA Lakers guard Bronny James is being sent to the G League to no one's surprise. Although LeBron's son has received significant media coverage since being drafted, he was still drafted with one of the last picks in the second round. Bronny isn't NBA ready yet. He will be bouncing back and forth between the LA Lakers and their G League affiliate, the South Bay Lakers. The plan is for James to only play in South Bay home games. James has made 6 NBA appearances thus far and averaging 2.7 minutes per game. This episode is entitled Spotlight. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment? Let's get to our highlight, the Phoenix Suns. After underperforming against expectations in sports, your first goal is to improve. The Phoenix Suns look to be on that path. The Suns are 8-2, tied for first in the Western Conference with Oklahoma City and Golden State, and just had a 7-game winning streak snapped. Ever since Kevin Durant was sent to Phoenix at the 2022-23 season trade deadline, it's been boom or bust with this team, and it's mostly been the latter. Because of Durant's acquisition from Brooklyn and rescuing Bradley Beal from Washington, the Suns don't have control of their own first-round pick until 2031. With superstar Devin Booker being Phoenix's franchise cornerstone for about a decade, bringing in Durant then and Bradley Beal last season showed the league that they aren't messing around. Durant, at 36 years old, is averaging 27.6 points, about 6.5 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 1.4 blocks per night. Booker averages about 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 7.3 assists per game. Bench players like Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen come off the bench as good shooters and underrated defenders. With new head coach Mike Budenholzer calling the shots, Phoenix is essentially out of excuses for not making a deep playoff run. And it's not like they have a choice either. Their next game is on Tuesday, November 12th at 9 o'clock. They will be in Utah to take on the Jazz as they begin their slate of in-season tournament games. To get more insight into our highlight this week, we have our first guest on Diehlman at Halftime Season 2. Let's get into it. So for our first guest of Season 2 of Diehlman at Halftime, we welcome Chris DiPietro. Chris was the reason I got into basketball, mainly because we used to play a good amount of NBA 2K over the years. He's also my cousin. Chris is currently a sophomore management information systems major at Rowan University after spending a year at Rutgers University, New Brunswick. This is his third time on the podcast, and hopefully we'll get him on many more times. So, Chris, how are we doing today?
I'm good, brother. I'm blessed. A little under the weather, but I channeled my flu game with Jordan, and what can I say? I'm ready to roll.
Oh, no, we got a flu game going. No.
Yes, sir. It's all right. It's no different than any other day. It's
I just got
nothing like
over
some adversity.
I just got over a cold about a week or so ago, so I'm all good over here. So
Well, you
hopefully
pass it off to me, man. Come on.
nah, I'll let you keep it. All right. So, Chris, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns as they've begun a new era under Mike Budenholzer. So, the Suns are our highlight for the week, and they are sitting atop the Western Conference, which is very good for them. So my first question for you. Last year, Phoenix was embarrassed against Minnesota in a first round sweep. Frank Vogel was a one and done as the head coach. So what kind of optimism should Suns fans have for the 2024-25 season?
I think they should have a lot. I think this young season has given Suns fans some real room to breathe. Like you said, you get swept in the first round last year. You feel stuck with an aging top-heavy roster and an extremely competitive Western Conference. You fire your coach, who many believed wasn't really the problem. All of that doesn't only feel suffocating as a fan, but it puts your team in a real limbo and without a real direction. But with the star power they had, they didn't really want to surrender their chance to compete. And I think Mike Budenholzer has really breathed some new life into the team. The general sense when he was hired wasn't very inspiring, as he kind of had a lot of similarities to Vogel, both championship winning coaches who were let go because of questions regarding their actual value to the team. But I knew Bud was going to raise their ceiling higher than Vogel ever would have had he stuck around. And from the moment it happened, I was really a big fan of the hire. Unlike Vogel, he's a proven elevator of talent that should have never been out of coaching. And the Suns players, notably Kevin Durant, had some real problems with Vogel's game plan and his rotations, things that are never really questioned under a Budenholzer-led team. Their superstars are meshing in a way that they didn't last year. The offense isn't nearly as clunky. And Bud's defenses, they're always going to be great. And some may point to the health or the roster additions as to why they've looked like a new team up to this point this year, which is completely fair. But coaching is such an important aspect of either elevating or limiting a team's success. And an elevating coach is one of the greatest luxuries as a fan and as a team. And I really think Bud's one of those guys. Suns fans were lucky that he was available. And I think that Suns fans should feel pretty enthused about how things are going so far this year.
Yeah, some good points there. Like you said, Vogel might have gotten scapegoated, if you will, in Phoenix last year just because of the rotations, and then obviously getting bounced by a young but semi-experienced Minnesota Timberwolves team. Now they're down Karl Anthony Towns, who went to New York, but still a very tough squad. But Budenholzer, remember, he was the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks when they won a title a few years ago. Giannis was playing out of his mind, and they're lucky to have him in Phoenix, obviously, with this roster, and especially in a tough Western Conference, they are lucky to have him. So my next question for you. One big question the Suns faced recently was a lack of a point guard. Tyus Jones, who was starting for the Wizards last year, chose the Suns over other teams with more money to contend in Phoenix. With the obvious three stars in the starting five, obviously Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, along with Jones and Yusuf Nurkic holding down the post position, how good is this crew compared to other teams' starting five?
I think this five matches up pretty well against anybody. KD and Booker are a better 1-2 scoring punch than probably any other duo in the league. And I think Bradley Beal, a guy who has been a number one option in the past, is really starting to find his niche as that third guy. And like you started the question off with, Tyus Jones has maybe been the pickup of the offseason, considering how cheap they got him. They desperately needed a true distributor of the ball who did not need the ball in his hands, and he is filling that role perfectly. He has really been the oil to this machine of an offense. The only weak spot I can really see with this five come playoff time is probably Yusuf Nurkic. Not a bad center by any means, but I don't think he's the force this team needs on the interior. And if he catches a bad playoff matchup like Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic, he might end up losing them a series. I like how they've looked more in their small ball lineups with their rookie Ryan Dunn, who has been a gem of a find for them. Considering how shallow of a team they were, they desperately needed to hit on a draft pick, and I really think they did with Dunn, who has been strapping teams on and off ball on defense, and he's been shooting threes at a hot clip after really not shooting any threes in college. So he's been an absolute gem for them. I definitely think they've become a more sound lineup compared to last year. And despite Yusuf Nurkic, I don't think he's that much of an issue. They are not going to be an easy out for any team in the playoffs.
Yeah, some good points there. I remember last year for season one of Diehlman at halftime. I forget what episode it was, and I forget what I had said, but I remember I made Yusuf Nurkic a random stat. I something like maybe he has the worst playoff record in the NBA, or he's one of the worst performers in the playoffs, or something along those lines. But like you said, he could be probably their one weakness right now. But other than that, like you said, the star power is there. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are disgustingly good. Bradley Beal, maybe not what he was in Washington, but still a reliable starter. And then going out and getting Tyus Jones from the Wizards, who we know have not been very good in recent years. Going to the Suns to actually contend was a good pickup and done, like you said, another good player indeed. So next, Kevin Durant is 36 years old. Bradley Beal is 31, and Devin Booker is 28, even though I feel like Devin Booker has been in the NBA for 20 years, basically because he started in the NBA at about 19 or whatever, but I feel like he's much older, but he's not. How long do you think this trio can be dominant? Because the Suns basically don't control any of their draft picks until the next decade with the Durant and Beal trade. So their draft picks are all over the place. So how long do you think this trio can be dominant?
I think it's a little hard to tell exactly how long their window's going to stay open. But what I do know is that it hasn't began to shut yet. Kevin Durant is aging like fine wine. He's playing some of the best basketball of his career at age 36. I mean, he's one of a handful of players left from that 2007 draft class, which feels like a completely different time in the world. And he is still an elite scorer. You get him on an island with anybody, and if he gets to a spot in the mid range, he already scored. Booker is in much easier regard. Whether somebody's kicking it out to him for three or he's waving everybody off to get his own bucket, you can only really pray to stop him. I think of him as a Kobe light, if you will. And he entered the league, super young, and you can no longer call him a young rising superstar, but he's still only really entering the prime of his career. Beal's role, like you mentioned, has definitely come down from that of a number one option. But I do think, especially under Budenholzer, he's been acclimating to it nicely. It's tough paying a guy like that 50 million a year, like a Booker, like a KD. But as a guy who can take some of the scoring slack off KD and Booker while contributing off the ball, he at least fits into their vision offensively, which as a guy who's been said as overpaid, that's all you can really ask for. None of those three have really shown any signs of slowing down yet. So I think those three can be dominant for some time. And even when Father Time catches up with KD and Beal, I think Booker has a very sustainable game, and I think he'll be elite for many years to come. If we're talking the Suns as a whole, like you mentioned, they don't have much of a future in terms of their draft picks. So I'm sure the ownership and the people up in the offices in Phoenix are praying for the longevity of guys like Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal because they're not going to have much of an opportunity to add to those three for a long time to come. So I think they're a great team now. I don't think they've shown signs of becoming a worse team anytime soon. But yeah, I think their window is definitely still open, and Katie is 36, as good as he is. So this isn't gonna last forever, but I don't think that window has started to shut quite yet.
Yeah, some good points there. And like we had both mentioned, the draft pick situation is definitely not in their favor. But like you said, Booker's game is very sustainable, and he's only 28. So obviously, in sports, the wrong side of 30. I mean, it depends on the position, depends on the sport. But they're still going strong. Bradley Beal should be fine. Durant is playing ridiculous considering At the end of the time with the Warriors, he tore his Achilles up. He missed his first year with the Nets and then came back and played like he didn't miss a step. So, yeah, I don't think this trio is going to slow down anytime soon, and we'll see how they do under Mike Budenholzer this season. Hopefully, he's not a one or two and done. Let's just put it that way. So, as of this episode right now, which is going to lead into my final question, the Suns are 7-1. They are tied for first in the West with the Thunder and the Warriors. Yes, the Warriors are 7-1 this season, despite being in the play-in tournament last year. So, my final question for you: Phoenix has a tough stretch of games coming up. So looking at their schedule as of this episode, they are at Dallas, have a home and away game against Sacramento, and a road game against the Jazz sandwiched in. That should be a free win. And then they also are at the Thunder and at the Timberwolves. So a very not very friendly schedule there. If the Suns post a respectable record in these contests, is it too early to say they're a team to fear in the West? And if so, explain.
I don't think it's too early to say that now. I don't see why they can't go out and win two or three of those games. You look at the bullet points for a contending team. They obviously have the star power. I really do think that they have the coach to do it, unlike last year. And they've shown that they're a lot deeper than last year. There's no reason why they can't be an elite regular season team and one to really fear down the stretch. I mean, the Suns that were in the finals 3 years ago and the Suns of today are two very different teams, but I do think they both fill the same boxes in terms of a contending legitimate team.
Yeah, some good points there. You said with the right coach that this could be a problem. With the right core, this could be a problem. And I feel like this NBA season so far, despite the fact that we're only, what, 2.5 weeks in, has been kind of upside down because in the Eastern Conference, the Cavs are steamrolling teams, and then after like three or four, like the four seed, I mean, it's everybody has either a 500 or a losing record. The Sixers and the Bucks are free falling, even though they should be toward the top of the conference. And then in the Western Conference, the Warriors, who I think their demise was greatly exaggerated, they're doing really well. And then teams like I saw in the standings, like the Pelicans, I thought would be a little bit better, and they're kind of suffering with injuries right now. The Clippers have had a tough start without Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George obviously went to the Sixers. So, like, a lot of teams are just in a weird spot right now. But yeah, like you said, I think the Thunder, the Suns, I think could take advantage of these games and could make a really great push to the Western Conference Finals or even the NBA Finals. But we will have to see overall as the weeks progress. So, Chris, thank you for appearing on the podcast as our first guest, and we will try to have you on at least once or twice more this season.
Of course, I'm grateful to be on, always having a great time, and excited for more season two. We're on every platform in the book, it's only up from here. Happy to be on, Larry. Thank you.
Let's get to our low light, the New Orleans Pelicans. Who remembers when Zion Williamson was being compared to LeBron James and that he was going to save the New Orleans Pelicans? Woof, that was a while ago. The Pelicans are 3-7, 13th in the West, and on a 4-game losing streak. The story wouldn't be complete here if I didn't say the Pelicans have an injury bug. New Orleans' latest injury report included Williamson, C.J. McCollum, Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, Herbert Jones, and Jordan Hawkins. That's basically their entire starting five and key role players. Despite this unfortunate luck, the Pelicans still have Brandon Ingram. Ingram leads the team with 22.8 points, as well as putting up 6 rebounds and 4.6 assists per game. Murray was acquired from Atlanta in the offseason as another scorer and distributor. When healthy, Williamson is a beast in the paint. Underline the words, when healthy. We learned on Saturday that he's out indefinitely with a hamstring strain. Jones is a defensive menace, and Hawkins has taken a step so far, going over double his scoring average from his rookie season. Especially since New Orleans is in the Western Conference, it'll be hard for them to make up ground. Or who's to say these team injuries won't linger for a majority of the season? We obviously hope that doesn't happen, but a situation like this can be tricky to navigate through. Their next game is tonight, Monday, November 11th at 8 o'clock. They will host the Brooklyn Nets. Let's head over to our random stat. In the Memphis Grizzlies' 128-104 victory on Friday against the Wizards, Scotty Pippen Jr., the son of Chicago Bulls Hall of Famer Scotty Pippen, did something groundbreaking. It was the first time that a father-son duo each recorded a triple-double in NBA history. The elder Pippen recorded 17 in his legendary career, a career which was mostly side-by-side with Michael Jordan. The younger Pippen dropped 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists for his first triple-double. Jr. has been coming off the bench this season, averaging 12.1 points and 6.5 assists per game in 25.5 minutes of action per night. Not bad. The LA Lakers tossed him aside after his rookie year before Memphis scooped him up before last season. So far this season, Pippen has recorded 4 double-doubles by way of points and assists. Again, this guy is coming off the bench. Ironically, one of them came against the Bulls. The other major father-son milestone we've seen in 2024 is LeBron James and Bronny James playing with each other. Unless the elder Pippen comes out of retirement at age 59, I'm pretty sure we won't be seeing him on the court anytime soon, or ever again. In a tough Western Conference, the Grizzlies have Pippen Jr. playing like this will surely help them secure a playoff spot for later this season. Finally, let's go to Game of the Week. For this week's Game of the Week, let's do the New York Knicks at Philadelphia 76ers. This game will be tomorrow, Tuesday, November 12th at 7:30 p.m. It also lands on the first day of in-season tournament games. This game is a rematch of the first-round series last season, which ended with the Knicks winning in 6 games. As mentioned in the opener, Joel Embiid will make his season debut on Tuesday. However, we'll have to wait a while for him, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey to play simultaneously. Meanwhile, New York is just under 500 as they test out their new squad. Losing Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Isaiah Hartenstein in the offseason to trades and free agency hurt, but gaining Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges were slam dunks. Jalen Brunson, Towns, and Bridges is one of the most lethal trios in the NBA. Until the Sixers get their situation together, I'm going to take the Knicks 112-108. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 X or Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both X and Instagram. My personal X account is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They are also in the description on Buzzsprout, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to Chris DiPietro for being our guest this week on the podcast. Remember, you can follow him on Instagram @ChrisDippy. That is @ChrisDipi. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.